Nature goes through the 4 seasons, but did you know that you also go through your own 4 seasons in life? I've said time and time again that knowing which season you're in and acting accordingly to this energy is what separates people who do heal from trauma and those who don't. In fact, the most successful and well-respected people on this planet all share this understanding if you look closely. These individuals are highly in tune with their season and they flow with it rather than fight against it. Well, today I'm going to show you how to know your season and how having this powerful knowledge can absolutely transform your life. Right after this intro. Welcome to the Inner Child Podcast. Now with 2 million downloads, I help high achievers recover from painful relationships and childhood trauma. Let's heal together on Season 2 of the Inner Child Podcast. Welcome back to the Inner Child Podcast, my besties. My name is Gloria Zhang. I'm an award-winning therapist, relationship coach, and best-selling author. And on this podcast, we help high achievers heal their inner child and childhood trauma, attract better relationships, and live their best lives. And as I'm recording this mid-September, the leaves are starting to change to a beautiful crisp orange color over here in beautiful BC. Indeed, it's been exactly 1 year since Andrew and I moved to the West Coast, Canada, Vancouver, British Columbia. And how time flies so quickly. And during this spectacular year, I've been able to witness all the colors of the 4 seasons on the West Coast. And what a perfect time to do an episode on the 4 seasons of life. And so I would like to thank our listener, Wesley, for suggesting this episode. I love it when you guys write in. I have mentioned knowing your 4 seasons because in my world, the 4 seasons is an essential cornerstone philosophy when I work with clients, and I frequently talk about this and ask, what season are you in? It's a very common concept I use in my sessions. Now, if you've heard this before, it's no reason to say, oh, I already know this, because you don't know anything unless you live it, and you can do it each time. So keep an open mind, because working with my seasons is one of the secrets behind not only how I healed, but how I now have become so successful in my work. I'm a very busy coach, obviously, and with the amount of responsibilities I have to be on top of things. Every day I'm managing my team of 5 staff members. I have clients ongoing. I'm running coaching programs. This podcast, I'm here every single week. I research and record episodes without sacrificing quality. I'm writing books, articles. I'm going on interviews. I'm now in a weekly dance group. I have to meal prep for me and my husband, exercising, volunteering, friends, catching up with my favorite reality TV shows, and somehow still getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. So I am a very high performance individual. And in order to do so, I need to be highly in tune with my energy at any given moment. And it doesn't mean that my life is perfect, but certainly it appears to other people that I never miss a beat, because generally speaking, that is how I feel. This is a huge departure from the traumatized person I used to be, going to bed at 3 in the morning, not eating, having constant panic attacks. I used to struggle with getting out of bed in the morning. I was on prescription lorazepam for my anxiety and depression, just the whole shebang, right? Which all stemmed from childhood trauma. Not anymore. I'm good now. It appears that I have such a dramatic transformation with my own healing journey because it kind of is. And I strongly disagree that healing should be this never-ending search for the next solution and the next solution. It's not supposed to be that way. And the way that I approach healing and inner child healing is that there needs to be a sense of completion. It's like going to the doctor. If you have an issue with something, you should be able to resolve it. And so when we do inner child work, we are resolving that part of your life. It doesn't make sense to be doing all this work, and yet you continue to have all of these problems. You continue to be in all this pain and anguish. How does that make any sense? So this feeling of permanence and completion is a very big part of authentic inner child healing. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that near the end of the session today, because today we are going to dive into the fantastical world of the 4 seasons and how you can use your 4 seasons to beeline your healing journey. And it goes like this. Just as nature cycles through summer, autumn, winter, and spring, so do you on an emotional level. You go through these 4 seasons through your entire lifetime, and you also go through them within the year, and sometimes you cycle through all 4 in a single day. I dare even say even a single hour. In fact, our entire lives are governed by cycles and rhythms and seasons. All humans operate on the circadian rhythm, which is a 24-hour cycle that corresponds to the earth, sunrise, sunset, you know the drill. Even our moon cycles through the new moon, waxing, full moon, waning. Women in particular go through 4 hormonal seasons every single month. Music compositions, songs. We have the verse, chorus, bridge, ending. In fact, every story and every movie in existence follows a narrative season told through the tale of the hero's journey. Whether it's a storybook or your favorite Hollywood movie, we have the main character, the hero, leaving home and going out into the world, experiencing conflict and crisis, becoming victorious in battle, and finally returning home as a transformed and evolved version of the self. How many more examples of seasons can you think of in our lives? Let me know in the comments below so I know you're paying attention. So we're speaking more than just weather seasons. We're speaking about this universal spiritual concept, which the ancient Hermetics called the law of rhythm. And today's version of this is the human experience of emotions, in which you go through your own version of summer, autumn, winter, and spring. Starting with summer. Summer seasons are when your life is good. You've received good news. You feel the most alive, present, connected. Your energy is infectious almost. This is when you are feeling on the ball, you're in your routine, and things are really good in your world. These are also those peak moments in life where we wish that we could just freeze time so it would last forever. And this is the season when we are healthy and operating at our peak energetic capacity. The eagle is soaring through the air. But you would know that even the eagle cannot sustain flight 24 hours of the day. And so it's not realistic for you or I to be running at peak capacity at all times, because that's when we move into autumn. And your autumn season is when your leaves begin to change color and fall. You're feeling a bit more tired, a bit more self-reflective. And these are also the seasons when we've just received some news that kind of put a damper on things, and now we need to process all this new information. So autumn is the season to slow down and be more careful. That's why it's called the fall. This is when the caterpillar begins to also slow down and begins to construct a beautiful woven cocoon as it prepares for its winter. And since in autumn, so much of our energy is being spent on processing, adjusting, and strategizing, we're now operating at half capacity. Maybe we are slightly off schedule and we're not feeling our complete best. Then comes winter. Winter is the season in which your world becomes cold. Snow falls to the ground and you retreat into your metaphorical cave. This is the season of hibernation. It's the season in which we grieve, we feel deeply, we get quiet, we rest, we sleep, we recover. We're processing information. And this is the time that some people call the dark night of the soul. Here, the caterpillar disintegrates into goo inside the cocoon. It's no longer a caterpillar, but it's not quite a butterfly yet. And this winter season is the very reason of why we say that it gets worse before it gets better. Because some of the most important healing is done after the session, after the conversation. It's when we are completely alone, we are in a state of desolation, but we need this time by ourselves to complete that inner work that only a state of rest and processing and grief can grant us. And it's necessary because you know what comes after winter? It's spring. Springtime is the season where the world begins to open up and warm up again. It's when flowers begin to bloom and we are starting to reap the harvest of all of our work that we put in over the winter. The butterfly begins to break out of its cocoon, and you also are feeling that natural instinct to reconnect with the outside world, slowly but surely. However, this time around, you realize that the person who walked into the cave is not the same person who's walking out. You've changed. These experiences and lessons that have come with the things that happened to you have made you wiser and stronger, have given you more perspective, and have evolved you in a drastic, fundamental way. Your energy levels are increasing once again. And finally, our favorite happy ending, summer. Summer is when the whole cycle has passed and life is good once again, except it's better. Because you are the newest version of yourself. You're connected again. You are once again operating at peak capacity, operating as the more evolved, leveled up version of yourself compared to before. And you don't even recognize who you were before. This is when the butterfly lifts its wings and takes to the sky. And as they say, what the caterpillar calls the end, the world sees a butterfly. And that is the story of the 4 seasons and how you move through them emotionally. So we're going to talk a little bit about this, as well as a few specific examples of how the seasons might play out for you. And the first thing I want you to notice as you're thinking about what I just told you and figuring out which of these seasons you belong to, you can only be in one season at a time, but notice how the seasons are transformative in nature. They're alchemic in nature. It's a process that, if you look closely, seems to be a tiny reflection of how the entire universe runs, how the entire unity of things operates. And there's something magical, but also divine about this process. You can't control the seasons. This is a part of nature, and it's happening on its own, whether or not you are participating in it. But where you can participate is how you respond to the seasons. Whether you choose to surrender and accept and go with where you are, or if you choose to fight it, which is just going to drag it out and prolong it. Because when you know which season you're in, you won't try to force things. You won't try to mismatch the energy level and the activity. You understand that if you are grieving and you are in winter, your body is not supposed to be happy and at peak capacity and dancing and laughing and pretending that everything's okay. It also means that when you're in your summer and you're feeling good, you shouldn't be holding back that joy. You shouldn't be preventing your body from moving and trying to slow it down. And my understanding of these concepts come from the philosophy of Taoism, which is from my ancestry, and it shapes so much of how I see the world and how I think and how I do my work. Because Taoism traditionally is about understanding the balance of nature and that we are not separate from nature. We're part of it. And the ancient Taoist sage Lao Tzu says very clearly in a sentence, Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. And it's also like that old Zen saying, when you're tired, sleep. When you're hungry, eat. Trauma and childhood trauma, in the most basic sense, disrupts these natural instincts, disrupts our correspondence with the flow of nature. It makes us avoid feeling pain when we should be feeling the pain, and it makes us withhold happiness because we're afraid of feeling happy. And so everything gets cross-wired. And so my philosophy behind healing trauma is about restoring that balance and realigning ourselves with the natural flow of things, which means we really do need to listen to our bodies. I don't know if anyone's ever done this to you, but trying to force someone out of grief when they're in grief not only is not helpful, but it just creates more resistance and more pain, and it just drags out that grieving process double, triple in time. When if only we could have allowed ourselves to be in the grief and feel it 100%, not just 80% or 90%, because it's not going away on its own, then that 2-year period could have been shortened down to 1 year, for example. It's almost like trying to go against the tide. It's just prolonging the inevitable. The current will bring you ashore anyways. And so with today's lesson, all I'm asking you to do is to stop trying, in a sense, and start being at one with yourself again. Become one with nature. When you're sad, cry. When you're energetic, dance, and dance with all your heart. When you're thirsty, drink water. When you're lonely, talk to a friend. It's right there underneath our nose the whole time. And you don't have to go pay a guru to hear it. Okay, I'm telling you this right now. This is the ultimate truth that you will arrive at, regardless of which path that you take. And in a moment, I'm going to show you something really interesting that happens when we draw a picture of the seasons. But I'm going to make you wait, and I'm going to give you a few examples of how these seasons play out first so that you have a better idea. So the first example is sports. So that's the most obvious example. If you play tennis or squash, you are in peak condition in your summer, but then let's say you get an injury, you sprain your ankle, now you're in autumn. But in order to recover, you have to go through a period of winter, rest, recover, go to the doctor, maybe get some physiotherapy. And only when your body is ready to move out of winter, then you will find yourself in spring again, where you're slowly coming out of it and returning to the court. Very simple. But now let's talk about a more complex example of grief. So the death of a loved one or the end of a relationship, when it feels like just the end of the world. You're in shock when you go into autumn, but grief is not something that's going to go away on its own. You will need to hibernate and go into a period of depression, to a period of rest and processing and deep grieving and recovery. And this takes months, years, until eventually you are ready to love again, to come into the world again. Not that we ever get over the death of a loved one, but that we are ready to take that experience with us and move forward, meet someone new, reconnect with friends. But you have to be in it in order for it to move through fully. The seasons can also go through a single day. So for example, you wake up in a great mood, but then at lunchtime, you find out that your boss is quitting their job. And you go into a period of autumn because you're scared and uncertain about who the next manager is going to be. You go home and you take a nice nap where you go into your winter and you sleep and you process. That's why they say sleep on it. And finally, when you wake up, you feel so much clearer and better than before. So, What I want you to do right now is to tell me which season you are in, and in accordance to that season, where is your energy level at? What rules do you need to respect about being in the season? And what is it that you need to do to be completely aligned with the season? Please let me know in the comments below, YouTube or Spotify. It lets me know that you enjoyed this episode. And only when I hear from you guys, I feel motivated to create more episodes for you in the future. So go ahead and do that. Now, here's the thing I wanted to say for last. I want to show you what happens when we draw a visual of a season cycle. So it goes up and down and back around. Why, it kind of looks like a sine wave or a sound wave, doesn't it? Exactly. Sounds are simply just vibrational patterns going into its own season. Now, music has always been a big part of my life. I started playing piano by the age of 6, and you guys know I ended up singing and playing guitar much later on. And the language of music is something that I've always held so dear to my heart. Not only is the universe made up of seasons, it's made up of vibrational patterns all the way from the atomic level to the grand picture. Sounds are a perfect representation of it. The wobblingness of frequency going back and forth. Music and rhythm, it's something that is so deep in our DNA, going all the way back to our early tribal times even. But did you know that on a broader scale, studies have been shown that sound and vibration affects us physically, emotionally, and our mental health, because different frequencies of sounds can mirror and synchronize our brainwaves. And that is what we need to do when it comes to healing trauma. For example, check out these beta waves. When you are in active, alert thinking state, your brain is in beta waves. But if you speed it up into gamma waves, that's when you are hyper learning or having a moment of insight. Slow that down a little bit, then you go down to theta, which is daydreaming and creative thinking. And finally, if you turn it all the way down, slow it all the way down to delta waves, that is where we have deep sleep or when we're just unconscious. And sounds that mirror these frequencies can change our brain waves and our state of being. This is just one of the ways that sound technology can help rewire our brains after trauma in much more direct and efficient ways than traditional talk therapy can barely scratch the surface. And so I mentioned a few episodes ago that I'm currently developing and investing in a new research-based sound technology, a new modern solution to trauma healing that will hopefully help a lot of people become free from anxiety, depression, and trauma faster and more efficiently so that we can rewire our brains in our sleep at the same time that you are doing my methods that are heavily based in EMDR and other trauma healing techniques for the purpose of inner child healing. And never in a million years did I think I could somehow combine my two lifelong passions, put them together, and develop something like this. And so ever since I put up the wait list for this beta program, I've received so many emails from you all, people sharing with me that they have hit the ceiling when it comes to talk therapy, and outside of the 1 hour per week, it's not really enough to produce permanent changes. And this is my personal stance. I don't think it makes any sense for us to be going back to therapy over and over and over again for the same issues. We should be able to solve things in this day and age, but we still are in caveman ages in terms of development. Some of our therapeutic techniques that we use in therapy were developed in the 1800s and have never progressed since. This is not therapists' fault, by the way. Therapists are incredible, amazing, selfless people. I'm talking about the system that therapists learn from and work in that is slow to evolve. And I believe that trauma healing needs to stay up to date with scientific advances. And I want to be part of the side of history that believes in innovation, that believes in progression. And I'm going to do it myself. So Here's why journaling, talk therapy isn't enough to heal trauma, because people with trauma have a very strong inner critic. This is the left brain, which makes it extremely difficult to change beliefs about ourselves and the world. There is naturally so much resistance, and it's not your fault. It's the way that the brain is wired after trauma. And so using technology that includes special frequencies, subliminal messaging, we can actually trick the brain into bypassing the critical left hemisphere and go directly into the right hemisphere of the brain, which is where your intuition lies, where the creativity lies. And we can rewire those beliefs without you having to do anything at all. You just sit there and listen. We have this technology. Why aren't we using it? Well, we're going to, because I'm looking for 8 to 10 people who would like to join the beta version of this program at a subsidized price, which will probably be ready around mid to end of October this year, as it's currently in development. And in exchange, you just need to be committed to the work for about 6 weeks, share your feedback with us, and work with us through this process. So you can sign up for the wait list at bygloriazhang.com/beta. Even if you don't get in on the first trial, I imagine this will be a long-term project for me moving forward. We have hired our chief brainwave specialist, Derek Van Heerden. I'm so excited. Derek is a sound engineer for meditations and brainwave technology, who's authored several best-selling books, including Mathematical Sound Production. And he's very well known in this niche community for his contributions to sound and healing and how the two can work together. So partnering with Derek has been just such an amazing project for me to be part of. I always knew I was meant to do something with inner child healing, but more to it. Almost like we're on the edge of creating something that's going to be so life-changing for people receiving these sessions. And I just want to see progression in this field. I think to myself that if we focused our resources on helping people heal from their root traumas, wouldn't that be such a wonderful way to invest our time in this world? Instead of all the surface level stuff, but if we could get to the root of why people do things out of pain, why we are in pain, that would mean a better future for all of us, for our children, and I'm really excited. So, as we conclude today's episode, I would like you to think about which season you are in and what you need to do in accordance to that season. But in order to do so, you need to listen to your body and pay attention to what you're going through at this very moment. Drop a note in the comment below if you found this to be a valuable listen. Share it with a friend and heed my advice that being one with nature means that you and nature are one and the same. And instead of forcing and trying to exert control over every little thing and becoming aligned and embodied, starts with this. One thing I do want to mention is that knowing your seasons, it doesn't mean that we're not trying to change defective patterns, but it's actually about understanding how your brain and body is wired. We're taught to be a good little boy, a good little girl. We're supposed to be running at 100% all the time. And that nature is telling you that that is not possible. In fact, it is a waste of our time to try to enforce such an unrealistic ideal. In nature, there are peaks and valleys, and you'll have the highest peaks when you are in accordance to those rhythms. Take a look outside right now. Notice how in nature, there are no straight lines. If you look at branches and trees and flowers and canyons and rivers and oceans, it's all wavy. Straight lines is something that humans invented. It's a symbol of our pathology and our obsession with perfectionism. But this is not something that is natural. Think about that for a second. Everything in nature is wavy. What else is wavy? Rhythm, sound, waves, seasons. And that takes us to the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll be back again next week. And in the meantime, Have a beautiful day and an abundant life. Thanks for tuning in, bestie. I've got something for you. If you think this show deserves a 5-star review, we'll send you my free Inner Child Starter Kit as a thank you for your support, which contains exclusive wallpapers and resources for you to download. To get your kit, just upload a screenshot of your review on Apple or Spotify to my webpage, bygloriazhang.com/reviews. The link is also in the show notes. There you can also check out my healing sessions and programs at bygloriazhang.com. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, and I will meet you in the next episode. Mwah!